Good evening. I just thought it'd be nice to talk about love again and just continue on a continuation on speaking about love. I've been thinking about it, and um, how do we know, number one, what love is? How do we know how to love? And how do we know how to allow ourselves to be loved? And obviously, we know that this comes from our upbringing, from our foundational family unit. And some people, don't have a great upbringing. They don't have a good foundation. And, they might be raised by an aunt, a grandparent, um, and they may learn love better than someone who has a normal structural family. So it may not always be significant. I know they did studies on this, that your parents have to be the ones who love you, your foundational familial unit, um, family of origin. Um, I know of, I'm thinking of someone I know of who was conceived, by a girl who was very young in a very bad situation, this man. And his mom was only like 15 when she conceived him through incest. And he was given up for adoption and given to a beautiful, godly couple. And he turned into a very loving man. Um, I don't know all his trauma signatures and all of that, but his environment was very influential on his learning how to love. So, you know, I'm just reflecting on, the people in my life because it's relationships in which we learn how to love, not only where we receive love, but we learn how to give love. And, in my life experience, I believe that being challenged in my life taught me the most how to love, I would say. Being challenged in my life in relational situations, long-standing ones, was where I learned how to love the most, where I was challenged to love the most. Um, I mean, we all know that, like in the most unforgiving circumstances, that is where the most love is is learned. He who forgives much loves much. The Bible says that's a loaded truth. He who has been forgiven much loves much. And he who forgives much loves much. To truly be able to forgive someone is true love. But we first, I think, experience being forgiven, and we're so overwhelmed by that forgiveness that we then want to extend the same forgiveness towards others who hurt us. And I'm thinking about significant people in my life who have taught me how to love in certain roles, you know, in maternal roles, in paternal roles, in friendship roles, in authority roles, in exemplary roles, obviously in marriage and definitely in motherhood. I would say that marriage and motherhood are definitely the most challenging areas of my life that have worked love into the dough of me over long, long, long periods of time. I remember when I was pregnant, the three times I was pregnant, I had hyperemesis, which is, I just had a reaction to the HCG hormone, and I would start vomiting when I was about, I don't know, 8 weeks pregnant. I always knew I was pregnant because I would start the vomiting, maybe 8 to 10 weeks. And I just vomited after that every day, and just nauseous 24/7. Until I pushed the baby out. And then a few hours after I pushed the baby out, all three times, when that was out of my blood, metabolized out, the nauseousness completely went away. And so for like 35 weeks, 30 weeks, I was completely nauseous and vomiting every pregnancy. Sometimes I would just be so hungry under the nausea that I would just stuff a bunch of food in, knowing I was going to vomit it all. And I just remember after my third child, as I was going to give birth to her, I wanted to have 5 children. And I wanted to have 2 more children. That was my heart's desire. Everybody has their heart's desire. And the doctors told me, you can't do this anymore to your body, for specific reasons. You just cannot do this. It's prohibited. You cannot do this. You cannot get pregnant again. And I remember someone saying to me, "You mean to tell me that you would go through this again for another child?" And I said, "Absolutely." So that was definitely a learning of love. There's no choice in that, right? You got to go through it. I remember sitting up with my children, my babies, and that was before the days that you had like a rocking chair set up and a nice, recliner. These were the days where you kind of just sat on your bed and nursed your child without any back support. And I remember just having my first child who was autistic and going through a lot of issues. And then I had a toddler who was my second. And then I had the baby. And I would just remember being so, so tired, like beyond exhaustion. And I couldn't keep my eyes open. And I would be holding the baby and nursing her and just praying to God that I wouldn't fall asleep with her in my arms and fall. And just to get me through, those nursing sessions for her in the night. And I just remember feeling like, wow, this is love. This is love, God. And I knew I'd have to get up, like in an hour and get up with the toddler and my autistic son and be up with them all day, after being up with the baby all night. And that was years, of just learning how to love that way for my babies. And then raising an autistic child, a child with a brain injury, and that's just long suffering that really, really worked love into me beyond words. I don't even have words for that kind of love. Um, and what it worked in my family in learning how to love through a lot of hardship, strain, difficulty, challenge. And everybody has their own plate, everybody has their own situation. Um, and presentation given to them, we all do, to present us with our own circumstances that are going to work love in us. And in my opinion, love is worked in us over a very long period of time. It takes time to work love in us and to work selfishness out of us. Because to me, hate is not the opposite of love. Self-centeredness is, selfishness is. And the self-kingdom battles with the kingdom of God to love or not to love. Either the self kingdom's going to win or God's kingdom's going to win. And when God's kingdom wins that battle each time in our life, love wins. So there is this ongoing road of learning love, and the battle of those kingdoms, constantly waging war. So I think that love is worked in us over time. It is taught to us by certain significant people in our lives who have shown the way how to love. And, I think that we need to appreciate when God brings someone into our life who teaches us how to love. And I'm reflecting on that a lot, about people who came into my life and taught me how to love. And just, I'm maturing in that and repenting in that and just asking for God to forgive me for taking advantage of people who really showed me love and taught me how to love and loved me when I was unlovable and toxic and maybe not worthy, of that love. And I'm kind of in that space right now, um, to throw away or to discard or to take advantage of a gift of God like that is, I think it's a sin. I think it's terrible and it's sad. And I'm kind of walking through that space over the last few months of just reflecting on that in a maturity, a new maturity. I turned 53 yesterday, and I just see God working a lot of deeper maturity in me that, of course, I wish maybe had been worked in me more, years ago, but only God knows what it's going to take and how long it's going to take and what situations and circumstances it's going to take to work love and maturity in us. Um, I believe we learn love through relationships. We learn love through hardship. We learn love through challenge. We learn love through long suffering. We learn love through being presented with an unlovable situation. Uh, we learn love by being presented with a challenge to our kingdom of self, um, over long periods of time and shorter periods of time. But I think the deeper love is worked in us through those longer term challenges that really um, wage war against the kingdom of self within us. How can we teach about love if we don't have those things to show for love? How can we teach of love if we don't have the relationships that have worked love in us, challenged us to love? How can we teach of love when we haven't, um, quote, failed at loving through, many circumstances in our lives and really walk through those darker days of, quote, failing at loving? Because we fail at it, we get back up and we learn how to love each day. Um, I think of men who get up every day for their families and they set their alarm and they're tired and they go to work faithfully, work hard for their families, and they go to work tired and they come home and then they help, and moms too. But I just think of the faithfulness of that in moms and dads, who do that every day for 40 years, 50 years sometimes for their families. That is love. That's love. Um, I'm grateful, because I had I have a very loving husband, selfless, and nobody's perfect, but he has definitely taught me a lot about love and about selflessness, uh, and being with people of God has taught me a lot about love too over the years. Nobody's perfect, but but that also has taught me a lot about love. And obviously, like I mentioned, being a mom, probably the utmost role that has taught me about love besides marriage. Uh, love is a fragrance, it's an aroma that we leave behind. It's something that we leave in the journey of our trail of life, through relationships, through family, through obstacles and hardships that involve relationship. And the Bible speaks of, love, uh, love sacrifice. That's the picture of Christ who gave life for others. And that is our ultimate, examples to give, to give, to give. Um, and to sacrifice, because there's something that's worked in that battle against the self when we sacrifice for someone else. um, that works love in us. And there is a reward in love in the spiritual realms, in our soul, that can't be obtained any other way than by laying down our own life for someone else in some way, over and over and over, in love. There is spiritual gifts